order, see if there are any public comments. All right, hearing none, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
There you go.
And we'll start with LT, who's going to talk to us about the first student contract renewal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Hip. So good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, rather. Today, we're just going to give you a brief overview of the first student renewal, and I wanted to give everyone an update. Proviso East AM and PM routes are 14 routes. That is down from 19 because of ridership. The activity buses over at Proviso East in late evening is 5:30 to 6:30. That is 2 buses. Proviso West has 22 routes in the morning and 2 PM routes in the evening, 5:30 and 6:30 again. PMSA has 8 routes in the morning and 1 route in the evening. Reason why we wanted to paint this snapshot so that when you see the dollars, you'll know exactly why the dollars are going up just a tad. Move on to the next slide, please. So here, this is the proposed agreement from First Student. Back in 2022, Proviso bid out transportation for 5 years, with 3 years being solid, and the final 2 years are optional years. That middle column, which is 25-26, this is the proposal for next year. If Proviso decides to move on with First Student and not go out for bid, we will receive a 1.3% discount for having 7 or more routes at each one of the campuses. If we have 7 or more routes, it'll be $236.76 per route. If we have 7 or less routes, which is on the left, it's $239.94. Moving on to year 26-27, as long as we have 7 or more routes, we'll be at $245.04. 7 or less routes will be $248.34. Moving down to the Proviso East and West activity routes, be $155 per at Proviso East and West, and $160 per in 26-27. PMSA, because it's the entire footprint for the whole township, will be $383.06 for 1 activity bus in the evenings. For 25-26, 26-27 to be $396.47 for PMSA. This is roughly a 3.5% increase. After speaking with First Student, having a great conversation with other colleagues throughout other school districts, they're seeing anywhere from a 7 to a 12% increase because of fuel, also rising costs in insurance, and rising costs because of drivers' salaries. In my opinion, I think Proviso should absorb this 3.5% for 25-26, and also for 26-27, obviously with the recommendation from the superintendent of the schools. Mike, can you open up that Proviso amendment on the bottom?
Yeah.
So this is the actual agreement outlining the terms and conditions. This is a boilerplate from the original contractual agreement with the exception to the extra dollar amount. We can always here, this is where the superintendent of schools will sign or his designee. And the same thing with First Student. And then Exhibit A reflects exactly what I just presented, related to a 3.5% increase for 25-26. And a 3.5% increase for 26-27. Any questions about transportation amendment potentially?
Yes. So what language do we have around buses arriving late or buses not arriving at all? That problem. And how prevalent is that problem?
So for buses that are arriving late, I asked Mr. Tone to add in there if buses are 15 minutes or more late, that Proviso will receive a 50% discount. If buses don't show up at all, we don't pay at all. He did agree that he will put those into the contractual agreement, and he will go over them with me prior to me giving it to Mr. Mohib for review. First Student, over the last 7 months or so, school's been in about 7 months, right? 6 months.
LT, before you go there, you said that it's, anytime it's 15 minutes late, at what cutoff time do we consider late?
So they should be 15 minutes, so if the pickup time is 7 o'clock and they get there at 7:15, it's a 50% discount.
Oh, so you mean late to their stop,
Late to the stop.
not late to drop?
Not late to getting to the school, because there's different challenges with that. Trains, accidents, inclement weather. So we're asking them to get the drivers up early, to get started on the routes early, to get to the stops as early as often, so they're not late to school. So, if you make it to the school 15 minutes late, because the train right at the Proviso Township building is 10 or 12 minutes, I mean, we can't hold them accountable for that.
So as long as they're making it to their stops.
To their stops.
Our stops are like outlined in that like big map of all of the.
In each route.
Yeah.
Each route.
And do we track the number of complaints that we've received from parents? Like, I know sometimes they go on social media and they'll say, bus is late, but do we have a list of all the complaints?
We don't have a list of all the complaints. That is something that I need to get better at, along with a few of my team members. I take full responsibility for that. But I have to say, this school year started out great. We're receiving anywhere from 6 to 8 complaints in the morning, and considering the magnitude of students that we pick up, that was only like 2.5%. It was really, really low. And since January, if we're receiving 2 calls each morning from parents or students, that's a lot. In my opinion, First Student has been doing a fantastic job after evaluating on stop in real time at stops, doing field observation reports with the supervisors and the directors. Proviso is need to get our students to understand is public transportation, because the buses are primarily on point. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
Do we have numbers on utilization rate, like how, like, are there specific routes that are like less than 50% full, or just that have a handful of kids that we could possibly consolidate, or is there potentially any savings on that?
So that's a double-edged sword. So we have asked First Student to compile that information because we wanted to truncate a few routes. So when you take a route that takes about 20 to 25 minutes to site circulate through the community to get to school, and you add another route to it, now you're doubling that pickup time. Now that bus is gonna have to start way early, and those students are gonna be staying out way longer. So we prefer not to do that. And sometimes what happens, especially when it gets really cold outside, ridership will be very high because it's cold outside. And then when it's warm outside, ridership will go down. We want to make sure we still have that capacity on those buses when ridership is up. I do believe we should have some kind of opt-in, opt-out program every 6 months, at the beginning of school year during registration, and then at mid-year, and that could give us a better snapshot of what mom and dad wants and the student. But that's some work we need to do behind the scenes.
Okay. And we don't have any tracking capabilities to say, like, Route 7 today has only 10 students. Yesterday it only had 3 students.
Every morning when the bus pulls in the Proviso West, I'm not sure if East does this, but at Proviso West, security is sitting there facing the main throat where the bus comes in, and the guy throws up 25 or 24 or whatever kind of students in there. So security at Proviso West is taking that number every morning, but I would be lying to you if I told you that ridership was high. It's not high. Only about 40% of the routes is high. The other 60% is 30 to 40% full buses.
And then how often do we do the single run race? Like, is that usually like a sporting event? No, I guess not.
Yeah, so the single run rate would be a sporting event going down the road, going to light, but we do in-house drivers as well. Our in-house drivers normally take the ones that are requested by our in-house personnel, and then the single runs, there's at least 4 to 5 per day. Right now, it's more about 4 because there's 3 sports going on right now, instead of in the basketball season where you have boys and girls, and you got all levels.
So we're seeing an uptick in single run rates related to activities, to extracurriculars like basketball and football. Is that?
Correct. So the activity rate, activities would be in the evenings, right?
Yeah.
So extracurricular sports will be on the bottom. That would be the single run rate. So the single run rate for 25-26 would be 224.48 and 232.34 for 26-27. As long as it's under the 3 hours. If it's over that 3 hours, it's an additional 216.
Okay.
224, I'm sorry.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions?
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, so then we'll turn it over to Dr. Brandon to talk about Barber and Cosmo. And so just so you know, this is not coming to the board in April.
Yeah.
We'll be looking to bring this to the board in May and June. We've seen a little bit more time to
Yes.
keep diving into this.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Dr. Brandon here, Director of Career Tech Ed at Curley Colleges, and we have prepared some slides regarding our barber program and our cosmetology program. So the barber program is up first. That is with Erskine Reeves Barber Academy in Hillside. The contract for school year 25 does stipulate that there'll be a maximum of 25 students. And just for those of you that don't know, when I came into the position 3 years ago, that maximum word said minimum of 25. And I think, Mr. O'Campbell, you were here when we made that change.
Correct.
Just so everybody's on the same page. So what we have, our costs for this school year are at $127,460. Projected cost for next year, if we continue with the same language and the same contract, would be at $159,600. It is open to juniors and seniors at all 3 campuses. Students receive 1.5 credit hours per semester. It counts as an elective towards their graduation. And then the current time slot is 1 o'clock to 5:30 p.m. daily. And we are looking at some alternate hours for next year and beyond. Go on to the next slide. Who is the clicker? All right. So this gives you a cost breakdown of this year. I'm trying to toggle between my own screens here so I have them. Cosmetology, and we're on barber first.
Want me to go to the next slide?
No, I'm, I'll find it here. I just haven't set up obviously. Okay, so currently we have 11 juniors and 9 seniors. And so year 1, you'll see that 11 people are there. It costs $5,600 per year for our students. If you are a first year student, that $1,400 is your kit. That's gonna have everything from your thinning shears to your scissors, the combs that you use, to a couple of the razors. That is a $1,400 cost per the contract that is not refundable. So if a student starts the program and doesn't finish, that is a cost we currently absorb. We have 9 seniors at $5,600. So you see off to the right with the totals. Our juniors, their bill is considerably more because there's 2 more of them, and they had an additional $1,400 cost. And so, across the bottom, it'll reoccur. For SY25, I want you to see the combined cost between the 2 programs, and then you move to the next slide. The barber projected cost for next year, if we continue with the same contract, that would open up 14 seats because we have 11 juniors that would become seniors. If they stick with the program, those 11 are in the 3rd slot where it says year 2 down. The cost for those 11 juniors would be $61,600. And if we fill all 14 seats, that's $78,400, and your kit cost is $19,600. So as a reminder, these programs are competitive, and there is an application process, for those. So we're at the conclusion of our 2 barber slides, and I wanna pause here if you have any questions or need any clarification.
Yes, well, in the slide, in the deck here, I see success rates, and I don't wanna jump ahead,
Sure.
but.
We'll cover that one for
Okay,
sure.
Then I'll put a pin on it.
Yes, sir.
And so, for the kits, so that $1,400, that kit, when a student signs up, right, they get a kit, and that stays with them through the completion of the program.
Yes, sir.
Now, if they don't complete the program, what happens to that kit?
So currently in the contract, that kit, every time a student comes into the program, there's a new $1,400 charge.
Do we collect back the kit for a student that fails the program, drops out of the program?
We do not,
They get to keep that.
yes,
I think that might be something we wanna look at.
absolutely.
Yeah, like something like taking like the school owns the kit and it's lent to the students, and then upon completion of the course, they get it, right, as a sort of like a thank you, right, for.
How many of our students drop after the first year?
If I had that number off the top of my head, I'd be lying. I can get you that information.
Okay.
And then if you wanna move on to the two Cosmo slides. So again, this would be very, they're mirrored contracts. I did submit last year a complete overhaul contract, based on a different experience that I want us to take a look at as a group. And that's part of the May and June, issue, that we have coming forward to the board. So again, the cost for SY25, this current school year that we're in, remember, a maximum of 25 students. That changed from a minimum. So the recruitment efforts have changed. We call them on-ramps and off-ramps with our programs between some of our other partners and our current partners. The correct on-ramp for a cosmetology or barber program is your sophomore year leading into your junior year. And one other piece that the board did ask in previous years for me to fix was to make sure that kids were all coming onto the on-ramp at the correct time. We only have one student this year that was a senior that entered, and don't want to single that person out. There's a very special circumstance. Everybody else entered at the correct time. With cosmetology, I also found that when the grades were turned in last week, I did have to request a refund. Because the number of students that we were invoiced and the number of students that had grades were different. So we are now collecting that money back in reverse. So that number will shrink, and when I have the exact figure, I'll give that to you. Off the top of my head, it's gonna probably be $5,600 less than what you see. It'll be half of the cost for each student. There are currently 3 students in question. 2 will come back for sure. The third we'll get with legal on. The projected cost for school year 26, so that's if everybody moves along. You have 5 seniors and 11 juniors total, 16 currently in the program. So those 11 juniors, in theory, could move on to year 2 as seniors, and then that would open up the remainder of the seats to current sophomores that'll be rising juniors. Again, it's a 1.5 credit per semester course. It's an elective that counts towards their graduation, and they have a mirrored time of 1 p.m. to 5:30 daily, and we are looking at alternate hours for next year. And just to define what alternate hours means, it is hours that exist within the current school year. Next slide, please. And then this is the breakdown for our cosmetology students. 12 first-year students, so they're juniors at $5,600 for a total of $67,200. We have 12 kits at $1,400. Puts us just under 20, just over 15, $16,800. We did have an additional kit for $1,200. That person was late, so they received a $200 discount on that kit. And then we had 5 seniors at a $5,600 charge. So that puts us at $113,200, and for the combined program cost for this year, it's $240,600. And if we jump to the next slide, I projected out what next year would look like if all current juniors move along to senior status. That would open up 13 seats. And you see the cost would go up next year to $159,600. Total program cost would go from $246,000 to $313,400 in its current form. And then I'll pause here before we move on to the completion rate slides.
So we're looking at overall $250,000, is that like closer to $300,000 altogether for
For both
both
programs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 240,000 this year, 313,000 next year.
Projected cost, okay, so, the information I have missing, I know that we've had a relationship with Miss Roberts Beauty Academy longer than we have, the Barber Academy. I know it dates back sometime in the mid-2000s, there was a little time off and then they came back in, which predates me by quite a bit. And I'm trying to obtain that exact information of the years that they came in. The years that I am able to look back and get it takes us back 7 years. And so I've been in this position, this is year 3, and we're trying to put structure around everything. So in the 7-year look back, from what I can see with our barber students, is there's been 50. We've had 11 complete the program, which means you have 750 hours done both years for a total of 1,500 hours. Of those 11, 6 registered for the state exam, and of those 6, 5 passed. So a licensed barber, you're at a 10% success rate right now. If you average that cost out at $300,000 a year over 7 years, that's where we're at.
Well, not 300,000, about 150,000.
Well, 150 between the two programs.
Any idea why our pass rates are so low?
When I was in this role in a different lifetime, I think sometimes less is more. So to screen and make sure that students have a certain acupuncture score, so we know that they can read at a very high lexile. So anytime you're in anything in career tech ed, you're going to read a lot of manuals, and if you can't inference well and you don't understand written language well, the first part of the class, for the majority of first semester, you don't see the salon. You see books, and you have to make it through a certain amount of tests. There are kids that struggle with that. And then just the need of being able to support all of our students in the program while they're in the programs is something else that I see.
I'm just going to add to that. I would like us to look into or consider providing some kind of reading support for those students so that they can be successful. I feel like they're in the program and they have the best intentions, and the ones that get through are really excited about it, but we're losing the others, and I feel like we could save them if we provide some layer of support for them. So I feel like they need some guardrails to help them move ahead. So I would foresee an increase in success rate with a level of support for those students.
So, and I would also offer this, when the contract read, you'll have a minimum of 25 students. The buildings and the counselors were in the habit of, well, when this person drops out, we're gonna just put the next person in. And it was, you're trying to get as many people in as you could, because you had to make sure that you're as close to 25 as possible. So even if you had 3 kids in there, you paid for 25. Now the language says up to 25. So you get an initial allocation as close to 25 as possible, and as those kids drop, they are not replaced. Because you went through the process of signing up and applying, and when kids drop 6 weeks in or a semester in, there is no plausible way for you to recover the hours that you would need to be successful. And just like this is a form of college, in my perspective, it's technical training. You have to come on the ramp at the right time and get off the ramp at the right time. And if you're not ready, that's okay. You are able to take out a fast route after you graduate and enter into a program like this as an adult. And some of our students are not ready. And so we have to be a little bit more poignant on our selection process and then our follow-up on how we support those students through reading intervention, the reading supports, visits to making sure they're on pace with their hours. So if they're at 750 a year, okay, after the first 9 weeks, you should be at least at 300. And so to set some minimums in place, we can also leverage that within the contract that if you don't meet the bare minimum, then you exit the program, money comes back.
And it sounds like we put a lot of onus on the student. What about the barber shop? Like, what sort of incentive do we say, like, do they have a say in the student that they receive? Or do they say, no, maybe this person might not cut the program because they're struggling? Do they communicate with us?
I do get communication. It's more about busing and attendance than anything else right now. With that said, there's ongoing dialogue. I am the current contract supposed to have recruitment plans from them. We encourage them to participate in our back to school bashes over the last couple of years. We've continued to encourage them to run open houses, as well as to get into the schools during the lunchtime. And anytime that you can come to a community event and offer free haircuts, and then put out a list and that kind of recruitment, I want to make sure that all of our vendors that we work with are aware that it is as much their job as it is ours to recruit kids to the program that are going to be successful. So right now, based on that old language, maybe they're more of you give me the student rather than it's a collaborative process and we need to add that language to what we do moving forward. That it is a two-way street and we're going to make sure that we recruit the best, and if they're not making it, we need early warning signs and we need to refund money because there's an expected return on investment.
Yeah, because to me, it seems like there's a sunk cost, right? As soon as they get the student, maybe the student doesn't complete year one, we've already invested the $1,400 kit, and what was it, like $5,600?
$5,600. So you get $7,000 for their first year, and that's over half of the program cost up front.
Yeah.
In September of said year, of junior year.
Exactly, and so they receive their end of the deal, so to speak, and we're left with some cost.
The heavy lifting, it seems to me, is on our end.
Yes.
We don't have those progress monitoring metrics. We don't have regular articulation with them, any kind of alignment and communication, for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
But those are things I think that we fill the gaps and try to raise the success rates and the ROI from doing that.
Yes. And then also, have we considered expanding the program? Right, like I know there's.
We are looking at other alternatives to this program. We're also looking at what the cost would be to run the program in-house. Maybe we had space to design the labs. Elton and I have had some conversations around that. And then the cost of the instructor.
Yep.
The other piece is then looking at the schedule, because I'm very interested in seeing how the program could be run during the regular school day. So kids aren't missing out on after-school activities, sports activities. So we're looking to see if there's a way to run a morning session and an afternoon session and then still have the kids participate in the regular academic core classes. So that's why we're holding and not bringing this in April. We need a little bit more time to explore. Triton does have a program. They do have to use the active bracer to get in. We do have one student that's in the program.
That's for Barber, yes.
For Barber.
Cosmo comes online in 27.
And the costs are about, it's a little bit lower at Triton.
It's off the top of my head, it's like $1,289 per semester, and I'm not clear on the cost of the kit that they get up front, but that would be a slightly lower cost than what we currently pay. So if you're looking at $4,000 a year, that would be $8,000 total instead of the $12,600. And so that could be a cost savings. Triton, we are in their EFE region, so Triton currently has 12 seats for 9 high schools.
Okay. So we're looking at this, obviously we're not pleased with our success rate at the Barbary. In Cosmo, our success rate is higher than our EP assessments. So there seems to be something that's working there. We need to explore as to why more of our students in cosmetology are successful.
So your cosmetology, again, students from, in our 7-year look back, that's 18 to 25. We had 52 students in the program, 21 students completed the hours at 1,500, 20 registered for the state exam, and 17 passed the state exam. That puts us at 32.69% success rate. So I still, would like to see this much higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so in between 18 and 25, we have had a worldwide pandemic. We did have a different contract with slightly different language. So I think if we build this correctly, we're building it for success, not only for us, but for the student. And I think our students deserve to be placed into a situation that they can be successful in. And if they're not ready for it, it's our job as the educators in the room to say, hey, we're going to get you on track and set for this, but we need more intensive supports at the school level. So when you go and you fill out that financial aid form after graduation, you're successful because you've mastered math, you've mastered English, you can read and write in the English language. The proficiency has to be there for all of our learners.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on either of those programs? No. And so while we have you, I brought the team so we can kind of run through our slides that will be, after spring break. So the next 3 or 4 slides here is what will be coming to you in April for the first time. These are upcoming information items. So the first one, I have Mike here to talk about the E-rate switch replacement.
Thanks, Mr. Norwood. So E-rate, it's a FCC program. You guys have seen me present on this before. It's the 5th year. They do 5-year cycles. Been here about 3 years. I've been able to use 2 years of funding based on when I started. But luckily, they hadn't used any of the funding. So we were started at $769,000. That first year we utilized $188,000 for the firewall replacement. I would say about $200,000 to $300,000 was out of district pocket just because of the way E-rate funds the firewall project. So that left us with $580,000. So next project we did were the server replacements, wrapping that project up. That was last year to this year. And then looking at how to utilize this funding. So the 2 areas that you can use category 2 funding for are basically just networking. But in our case, it would be switch replacement or wireless access point replacement. The district honestly has a hodgepodge of switches all over the place of different quantities. So over the past 4 months, we've been working with our managed service provider to not just look at a 1-for-1 replacement, but a consolidation plan where we have roughly 140 physical switches and taking that down to about 110 because a lot of it's for labs and stuff that aren't in use anymore. And that it doesn't meet E-rate criteria if you replace equipment that isn't being used. So looking at that, put together an RFP with our consultant, had 6 vendors come in, and they range all over the place for up to $900,000 for an RFP proposal, all the way down to a $400,000 proposal. We have to base it off our decision matrix, really nothing else. And Mindset, which is our MSP, came in scoring the highest on our decision matrix based on price as the highest weighted factor. And then, working with the vendor before and how they responded to the RFP, basically the equipment that we requested. We requested essentially a Cisco or equivalent replacement. So that would be replacing every single one of our switches across the district with Cisco and replacing all of our battery backups. So that project would be covered by the remaining $580,000. Again, we only get 85% of that, so the project cost is $680,000 and $493,000 and some change would be covered by the remaining of that funding. So that remaining $186,000 would come out of technology department budget. So ideally, I would have loved to do the access points and then do the switches, but because our switches are so old and there's a mix of them, we can't do an access point upgrade until we get all the underlying equipment upgraded first. So what, if the program is renewed for, for the next 5-year cycle, we would then look, really regardless of the program, our next step would be using the next amount of funding for the access points across the district. So just kind of stepping through the priority items of the firewalls, switches, and then the access points. Any questions?
So this affects our wireless coverage, right?
Essentially, yeah. So we did a wireless site survey across all the buildings to correct. We didn't have a lot of documentation, so we have a maps of the buildings, the coverage. We corrected all the dead zones and adjusted everything. All these feed back to our switches. So if we want to replace these, half the switches don't support the newer access points, essentially. So we could swap that out with a new one, and it wouldn't even go online. So we have to replace all the switches and core switches. The core switches aren't a part of this, but the core switches we really don't have to do. But we have to do all the closet switches, and then we are set up for a framework of doing the access points next. And we can kind of tether that and do, depending on budget, because that's going to be, probably about just $1 million just in access points. Maybe do one building, do like east and west, kind of step through it. It's not like an urgent thing. It's just now that we're setting up the groundwork for having, normal cycles of equipment replacement.
And I'm just thinking about the AT&T contract that allows for hotspots. Is that correct? Wireless hotspots?
So we had, the one that we just did, that one? No.
Yeah, I don't recall when we signed up for it, but it came with wireless hotspots, and I'm just not concerned, but like if we have wireless coverage here, we need those wireless hotspots.
Oh, I see. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so we have a hotspot program for our students that don't have home internet. So that's the only, and it's not much per month. We monitor, and I honestly call the parents and work with them to make sure we give them, and then we collect them at the end of the year and disable them during the summer. So it's not a huge, it was this massive cost when we came in. It was like $40,000 a month or something. But now that we have it under control, it's maybe $1,000 a month in hotspots.
Okay.
So yeah, but no, that's a separate program. That's just for students who don't have home internet access.
So the next one is on a book donation. This is not bringing books in, this is sending books out. And because we're educators, we don't like to throw away books. So we are trying to find, and we did find somebody that would be able to take these books off our hands. Who's doing this? You, Angela?
Mr. Asher, did
Oh,
So big thanks to Proviso Township for kind of inventorying that, and Mr. Jenkins, our book clerk, and Dr. Gottlieb, who's kind of spearheading this, identified, I think it was just over 6,000 books that are extremely outdated and no longer in circulation, old editions, or condition. So working with Scarce, it's a company out of Glen Ellen, they accept a lot of used books. So working with them, and then consulted with our maintenance team as much as we would like to use our maintenance team. There is a considerable effort to have all of this kind of undertaken to load and transport. So we are looking at a company to support that effort to basically load these wooden pallets onto their vehicles and make several trips back and forth, and basically take all of those books over to Scarce. So I believe that cost came just under $2,000. I believe it was like $1,600 to transport all these books with those 2 to 3 trips. And just something necessary. If you visited us, there are numerous book rooms, so we're just trying to consolidate all of those and to get rid of the equipment that we are no longer using.
You said 6,000 books.
Oh God, yeah, we just locked them.
It's been,
Could be more than that, right? It's a lot.
It was a lot.
it's been neglected for at least 5 years.
Okay.
Some of the versions were taking us back to the 80s.
1980s.
so
Books I
they
used in
were
1990s,
They were very old, and
Yeah.
when they
Books I
started
used in
this,
high school.
I met with John Jenkins and Dr. Gottlieb, and let them know that we had gone through this process at PMSA, which had been neglected for 4 years. So when I joined Proviso, there were mountains of books just in the basement. We had no idea where they belonged. So kind of shared with them the process, but they had the volume that West had was exponentially greater than what we did at PMSA. But our maintenance guys were able to do the pallets back and forth, but the shocks got damaged on one of the trucks, and so we had to hold all these boxes under the staircase because it can't be fire violation now. Okay, it was really difficult. And they did eventually get scarcely used books, get it there, but it was a lot. So this is definitely a great option to free a lot of floor space and real estate at West for other things. So it's
Squares has a great network to reach out to numerous places, so it's a company well known in like the book donation, so they will go to a good home.
Mr. Taylor, did I describe that okay?
You did a great job.
Thank you so much. Look, I'm talking about drug shots right now. Okay.
The next one, this one is a system called Let's Talk. And so this is something I've used in previous districts. There are a lot of districts around the country that use this platform. And the reason I'm interested in bringing this here is because I have heard over and over and over again from students, families, stakeholders, even internally, our own staff, frustrated that we are not responding to questions and concerns and requests for feedback in a timely manner. And, I've looked at some of these and it's been, sometimes parents are waiting months and they're not getting an answer. Sometimes it's forgotten and they don't get an answer at all. So this would be able to centralize phone calls, emails, even internally if we wanted to. I know we use School Doodle right now, but it could centralize all of that. And what I like about this is it will send reminders to people. It will streamline, like, here's the question that's coming in. It will route it to the right person. And that from the superintendent cabinet level, we'll be able to look at staff to see how long it's taking people to respond. And we can set a timeline. My suggestion at Proviso would be a 24-hour response time. We don't have to solve the issue, but we have to at least respond to that issue within 24 hours. Just even if it's just acknowledging the email and letting that person know we got it, we're going to look into it, we're going to get back to you, and then we can continue to follow it. The person that is bringing the question, they have the ability to then rate us. So we get a customer rating score. So then, exactly like an Uber score. So then we can start identifying which of our staff members may need a little bit more professional development or support on their customer service. Because the ideal is that we want to at least, out of a 5, hopefully get a 4 or something. So, these are things we can see, like how timely we are, how we're responding to people, the perception of our response, and so just kind of help with that customer service space. And so I'm still socializing this through the committees. We have a communications committee that'll be bringing this to the team to get some feedback from them as well. I've also looked at other programs that do similar things, but nobody does this timing and customer service rate quite like K-12 does. So this is something we'll bring in May for approval. And then moving on, it's you guys have seen these already at the last board meeting, so just wanted to take an opportunity just to run through and see if there's any questions. So the first one is a Renaissance Star.
So we are a big user of Renaissance Star, so we're looking at a 3-year renewal. We're just coming off of a 2.5 year the initial contract. This is something that we use heavily every year. It's our benchmark assessment. We call it a universal screener, where it assesses students in math and reading, and we do this 3 times a year in the fall, which is start of school, in the winter, December, January, and then in the spring towards the end of the school year. That feedback that we receive helps us progress monitor. We also use it as a type 1 student growth metric. So that type 1 is talking about the teacher evaluation portion. So there's a little bit of that accountability piece where this is used for all teachers, regardless if they teach a math or English course. And then it's heavily used in IEP meetings to help with goals and benchmark setting for our students. And it is something that does align with our Illinois Learning Standards. So we're making that switch from SAT to ACT, so we're also giving some important feedback on these key points leading up to this high stakes April test. So it is something that we're heavily using, and there's going to be another action item related with this with Nearpod that I think Ms. Lee will speak to a little bit when we get to that slide.
Next, we have a physics textbook and then also a chemistry textbook.
So, well, actually all 3, bio, chem, and physics, they're all old. The bio is not ready to pilot yet because the textbook's not out. It comes out this summer, so we will pilot that next year for the following. But the physics textbooks, both physics and chem, 12 years old. They're, the online version is 8 years, so they updated the online, but the text they haven't. And actually, I just talked to our rep coming over here, they do not plan on supporting this anymore. They're not going to print it or do the online, so within the next 2 to 3 years, that will go away. So we won't have the online support at all. We looked at 2 major ones, McGraw-Hill and Savas. The teachers piloted it. I was able to get 1 from each building. That was the ultimate one I wanted to do, since chemistry's gonna be a little different. But physics, 3 different teachers, 1 from each building. They unanimously recommended it. Obviously, there are some things about it that they don't like, and I'm like, oh, don't teach that section, teach it the other way.
Does that represent all of our physics teachers, the 3?
We have 5 total, so it's a big chunk of it.
Right.
Yeah, physics not as big. So you got 2 here, 1 at East, and 2 at West. That's our 5 teachers. And the books come with a digital license. We're doing classroom sets of books because the digital they're now on, so they're there for classroom sets. The books 3D is virtual PD and on-site, I found out. So they'll do on-site, and Savas is, Angela can even speak to it. Their customer support is amazing. Like our reps, you can just call them and they'll hop on for free a Zoom meeting and help a teacher out. They've done that 7 times during our pilot, and you're only supposed to get 2 meetings with them. So, they really have been amazing, and that's with shipping. It's gonna cost a little over $57 to update our physics. So, that's our physics. Now going to chem, it's the same thing. So, it's the Savas chemistry, same thing, 12 years old. 2017 on the online, it's all the same company. We were using Pearson, Biochem and Physics, now this is gonna be Savas. Science teachers from each school, they reviewed it. We had them come in and they did a review of it, and they were the ones that told me that we should pilot this based on the other ones. Now, we don't have unanimous. Unanimous for the teachers that piloted it, which were only 2, and they were both from West. PMSA didn't want to, but gave our blessing that, yes, we're fine with whatever you purchase. East, so much. They're split. A majority of their concerns is they want to use the current textbook because they're comfortable with it. And I'm like, well, it's gonna go away. The other thing is, this is too hard to learn, so it's new. And I was like, what, we're gonna have PD on this. We have teachers that have done this and everything else. So we still are overwhelming with, I think our final count was 9 to 5, 9 to 4, something like that, of all of our chemistry teachers. So we have like current chemistry teachers right now. I think we have 13 or 14 across the district from PMSA through East and West. The book's digital license, they will do PD too. The PD was tacked onto the physics, but she just tacked it onto 1 price because as long as we're under 30 teachers, it goes as 1. So because we don't have a ton of teachers, they just lumped it onto 1. So it's gonna be our chem and our physics teachers getting all those PDs with shipping. For all brand new books for all 3 campuses and the digital license, it would be just under 100. So we'll double because we obviously have double taking chem and physics. So.
All right, next we have Newsella.
So Newsella's up for renewal. Newsella is quite a robust tool and platform. It provides rigorous and high interest articles with varying style reading levels to assist our students in building background knowledge, which many of them do not have. It provides content in ELA, social studies, science, EL, and SEL. It has a Spanish language feature, which can read the text to students in English or Spanish with or without the audio. Teachers have provided consistent positive feedback on it. Lots of teachers are using it in their classrooms. Mostly it's the non-ELA teachers that are using it, which is what was its intention, because the Savas ELA textbook has the fiction and the non-fiction. But PE teachers are using it as supplemental, CTE, science, lots of high interest articles. They're short enough so they're not overwhelming of a whole chapter in a textbook, maybe something the student's not interested in. It provides formative assessment quizzes to check their comprehension. can adjust their Lexile levels as they get more of the questions right. But it can definitely be used as supplemental material and resource for the curriculum. It does integrate with Schoology, which makes it very easy for teachers and students to access. We've set up another contract for 1 year. It does include 6 virtual PD sessions for a total investment of $72,822.30.
Thank you. All right, the much awaited Nearpod.
You know what now?
Much awaited
Nearpod.
Nearpod.
We're very excited about Nearpod.
We are excited about Nearpod. The good thing, as it relates to Nearpod and Renaissance have actually merged together. And so we're using Renaissance STAR testing. And so with Nearpod is able to give support to our teachers and then base that support on where our students test on the STAR. So they can really look at some targeted areas and really kind of go a little deep to try to improve scores. And it takes a lot of the guessing work from them. The other good thing about Nearpod, a lot of the lessons are all aligned to our state standards. And so there are thousands and thousands of lessons already there. And so what we've noticed, a lot of our teachers are just tapping into those lessons and at those levels, and they're doing a lot of the remediation and providing a lot of support to our students. This program was introduced during the fall. We purchased it last year, and we started our professional development during the month of October. And so it was a very late start in terms of usage, but after we did a district-wide training session, our usage just really has increased tremendously. If you look at that, East is leading right now with the number of sessions. West contributes about 15% in their sessions. Also, PMSA usage and sessions-wise with their teachers participating is around 29%. Just to kind of break that down a little bit more, year to date, we have approximately 105 teachers that are using Nearpod, and we have more than 800 students that are using it. So right now, we want to grow that, certainly with a student population of 4,200 or more students. We want that to increase, but we know that it will. We've received nothing but just positive responses from our teachers. And it is a program that I am strongly recommending that we will continue. Last year, the cost was a little bit under the $33,000. It's just been like a 3% increase, which is normal with a lot of vendors. So that investment of $33,600 is what we're looking at in terms of renewal, and that will also include professional development for our teachers as well. And we're monitoring it pretty good because we think it's going to be a game changer in terms of providing that tailored instruction. And then it also allows for great differentiations in the classrooms with our teachers as well. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you for allowing me to share it.
All right, the next one is an upgrade for some band instruments over at Proviso West.
And I know Ms. Marino here did a lot of the work as well, so I thank you, Ms. Marino. This did go out to an RFP, so we did have 3 bidders with this. This is something that is needed for the Proviso West band equipment. We are working very closely with our band instructor at Proviso West, Mr. Asher, to we want to see that program grow and flourish. So continuing to support him, looking at purchasing this band equipment at a total cost of $56,744. Mr. Ann, I'm going to throw it over to you to see if you wanted to add any additional information that through your conversations and work on
Yes,
this one.
having worked now with Mr. Asher at Proviso West Band and Mr. Seals at Proviso East, there is some clear inequity in terms of what West has for the students, particularly in the percussion area. So there are types of drums and types of instruments that West students are not exposed to because we don't have those instruments, whereas East does. So it's clearly an equity issue, and in terms of growing the program, a lot of it has to do with what the grant program actually has to provide for students. So this is an important pursuit, I believe, for that program.
Kick it back to Mike for the copier information.
Thank you. So our copier lease is coming up. We've had a lease contract with those Martin Whalen. They were bought by Xerox. And 36-month leases. And the way that it looked like Proviso rolled it out is they did 3 36-month leases. So they would do it in thirds, essentially chunk it out. Which is a great way to implement to save money, but not a great way for users to enjoy using the copiers because we have 16, 17 different models of copiers with different supplies, and I want to say even more than that. So, like if you go in our storage room, it's ridiculous. So great initial way to do it, but not a great long-term or usability way to continue. So our contract was coming up. We approached 3 companies. One was Xerox again to approach that same replace a third model. The next was Image Tech, which is a more local company, and then the third was Konica Minolta. Konica Minolta came back. They spent a lot of time going through right-sizing our fleet. So that's, I believe it was like 14 upgrades actually, and then like 4 downgrades. Basically, they looked at machine usage and said, hey, this one they're using a lot. It should be bumped up a model. But the good thing is, it would take us from 18 models down to 4. It would be the same all across the district, same parts, same everything. So from a value cost side, they came in pretty much at the same cost as what we currently have monthly with our current contract. The Xerox contract that came back, the Image Tech was a lot higher. The Xerox one came back was slightly lower, but again, that was only for replacing a third of our machines over a 36-month. So rather than continuing this life cycle of craziness with copiers all over the place, I was like, let's just do it right, get the same copiers across the district, same fleet, and then when we come up again at the end of the 60-month term, we would then go out again for RFP. We could very well switch back to Xerox, but at least it would be the same model across it. So, and then the proposed is considered a 1 rate. The reason I would select going with 1 rate is that it's not a cost per copy, it's just a set dollar amount. We can then look and see if we're actually utilizing it or if usage is going down. Copying usage should theoretically slowly go down. But the thing is, once you go to cost per copy, you can't go back. So I was like, let's go with 1 rate. We're locked in for a rate, and then analyze, in 6 months, let's see what our usage is. Should we switch to a cost per copy model? But the current proposed contract would be $11,391 per month. Over 60 months, it's $683,000 contract. So again, that's a complete fleet refresh, all new copiers across the district, and the addition of a few that we noted in some areas.
So the 32 that we own, we're doing away with those?
The 32 we own, for however they worded the contract, they're technically a lease buyout option. So at the end of the lease, we don't even technically own them. I didn't negotiate that contract. I ran it past the legal. Look, so the new contract is a state tax exempt $1 buyout contract. So at the end of the lease of these 60 months, of the new ones, it's $1 to buy out all the machines. I don't know. Yeah, it was something that I don't know who negotiated, but not a good deal. So if we were even to continue with Xerox, we still have to pay out a certain lease proportion on all the copiers that we already paid. So it just wasn't really a good value for the district long term.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next up is Imagine Learning. This is otherwise known as Edgenuity. And we're looking at a 1-year renewal. We've been looking very closely at Edgenuity. This is a program heavily used on our credit recovery side. All students and teachers do have access to it if they chose to supplement. There are over 400 courses that are aligned again with those state and county course standards. But heavily we use it on the credit recovery side. We've been using this since 2019. I think you definitely hear a concern around the pace at which courses are completed in this digital age. So it's something we're paying very close attention to. We are not in a position to move away from this quite yet at this time, given summer is rapidly approaching. So taking a look at a one-year contract to heavily take a look at a number of different options to see if there is possibly something better out there for this. So this one-year renewal is a total of $86,000, and
And I have the last two. So the first of my last are, so back in November of 2024, the board agreed to extend 2 TIFs in Melrose Park. And with that, we engaged in conversations with the city and the mayor, and he has graciously agreed to provide us $250,000. It would be through an IGA and a reimbursement model. We would have 1 year to spend these funds down. The ask from the mayor is that the funds be used in some way to improve our academics within the district. So we look back, I know the business office helped with this as well, trying to see if we've had other opportunities like this from cities in TIFs, and I think we went back like 10, 15 years on this, and we weren't able to find anything like this. So this is, again, a great opportunity, and we're very thankful to Mayor Cipico for this. So this will be coming for approval in the next meeting. And then the last one is I had a wonderful conversation with a woman from the class of 1976 for Proviso West. She has a $3,500 donation that she would like to give to the school, and she is just asking the school what they would like to use it for. She just wants it to benefit students in some way. And so she has been trying to kind of led me towards my K-12 Let's Talk piece. She had been trying for months to give us money, and she wasn't getting a response. So, you know, again, we could always improve in our communications because we never know who's on the other line.
Yeah.
So we are looking forward to finding a good use of these $3,500 for the students. So, and with that, that is all of our updates for you.
Any last thoughts? This has been great. Thank you all for sharing this information. It's really insightful. There's some action items, some follow-up. I have some follow-up questions about like the barber and the cosmetology, and then also our transportation, because I want to do a deeper dive in understanding routes and, obviously getting the most out of our investment, right? Because I think we budget, is it like 3.6 million for the contract for transportation?
Yeah, that's the basic home to school, school to
Yeah.
home. So it's not with all the extras that's on there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's up to 4 million plus annual.
All right. Well, that's it for me. Any last thoughts before we adjourn? All right. Well, thank you all for your time.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.